this SID will enable not just this first phase, but additional phases within Solstice and other projects in the nearby area. So one of the key things to think about, obviously, from your perspective is what are the costs and what are the risks? One of the things about sponsoring an SID bond like this is it provides tremendous risk mitigation for the sponsoring agency. The first key element is the fact that it's first lien protection. What that means is co-equal in terms of priority if there are any problems with property taxes. All the other stakeholders, the owners, the lenders, and any other liens comes behind the SID and property taxes. Now, as we'll show in a minute, these bonds in particular are extremely well collateralized, way beyond the statutory limits. And currently, while it's very difficult and impossible in this case to float private bonds, the interest rate environment is very favorable to keep this financing at very low cost. Now, I think this was indicated, the fees and expenses associated with this offering have been borne to this point by the developer and will be rolled into the SID, so it will not be an additional cost to the city. The ongoing administration will be outsourced to a third party. It's very reputable and does this on a large scale. And lastly, I think we'll spend a little more time on this depending on your interest, but the risk of default and the mechanisms that create incentives for all the stakeholders to cure those defaults are very compelling and dramatically reduce the risk to the city as sponsoring agency. And lastly, bankruptcy, which in this day and age has to be considered in any financial analysis. The bankruptcy process typically protects the SID priority in the assessment payments. However, it is up to the individual bankruptcy judge. Now here's a key way.
Go ahead, Wayne. Go with
Video.
Yeah.
Are going into an administrative item, which is consideration of Resolution 617, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mesquite, acting in its capacity as the Board of the Redevelopment Agency, approving an RDA loan for Barcelona Partners LLC to complete improvements on Phase 1 Solstice Motor Coach Resort within the Solstice development. Mr. Hacker, do you want to acquaint us and let some of those watching at home, those in attendance, have a bit of background on this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Apparently I haven't had enough water. After a discussion by the council regarding the SID and having the city co-sponsor that and declining to do that, council asked that we work with the developer to look at alternatives as far as financing the street necessary to be extended and the infrastructure necessary to be extended up to meet the needs of the motor coach development or component of the development. So we've done that. The project for that component has been scaled back to a component not to exceed $2.5 million. City Attorney Cheryl Hunt reviewed the various NRS sections to find how the city could enter into an arrangement, a loan for this. The RDA actually is well, part of the Barcelona Partners property is actually in the RDA. This project location will be directly adjacent to the RDA, and the RDA does allow that monies can be spent to extend infrastructure, do projects that will have a direct benefit and create a stimulus within or adjacent to. So the city attorney has provided findings that if the council so chooses to go forward with this, need to be the recommendation, excuse me, the conditions from staff recommendations would need to be included as part of the motion. There again, the way that the developer has requested this to be done is to be base it on a 15-year amortization, but with a 6-year balloon. First year's interest payments would be rolled back into the loan. It's a fairly traditional process with loans and bonds. Be semi-annual repayments. You have an amortization schedule provided to you that shows that at the end of the 6th year, the amount of principal, interest, and what would be remaining. Also, conditions would be that the developer give us position on the property, a first available position, which would most likely be behind some other financing on all of the property, and then identify the funding sources for the repayment of the loan. Also agree that once an SID could be developer-driven, SID could be sold in the market, that would be done, and the city would be reimbursed for the remainder of the loan at that time. Mayor or council, if there's any other questions for me, I'd be happy to entertain. Also in the audience today are representatives of Barcelona Partners.
All right, let me lead out with some comments, often asked questions. Obviously, the applicants have financial information which is very proprietary, and as well they should, they guard that. And it is appropriate for them to do that. I want to assure everyone that I have seen funding information. I was able to see it, so I know what they are obtaining, which gives us a level of assurance. I didn't keep a copy, I looked at it and gave it back. But what's very important is we are trying in a time, and I think several council members said this last time, and they couldn't be more right. These are very challenging times, and we have to find ways to help keep tax revenues appearing, and we need businesses going. We do as much as we can. In this particular case, this is a project that has a very short timeline on it. The funding requires them to do certain things by September, and so that is why we tried to come up with an alternative to assist them in their endeavors, because they do want to get something going within Mesquite. So I just wanted you to know that. I know people have questioned whether or not funding documents have been shared, and I can assure you that I have seen them, and so I do have much more of a comfort level. Does the applicant wish to come forward, or do you want to just see if we have any questions first? I'd also like to entertain, if the council is so inclined, to ask if there's anyone wishing to come forward for public comment.
Sure.
All right. If there is anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward for public comment, I would ask that you do so now. Councilman Welch, do you want to, is it okay? Okay.
Mayor and City Council, I had an opportunity.
I'm sorry, you have
Oh, I'm sorry. Bob David Al Mesquite. Had an opportunity to study this current proposal. And I really believe that this is an excellent solution to stimulating this project and getting it moving. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the applicant. And I believe it solves all of the issues. And I think it's been done very well. I want to express my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to come forward for public comment, and that is on this particular item? All right, not seeing anyone else come forward, I'm going to close the public comment portion, and I think we do have at least one light on. Councilman Wells, would you like the question? Or
yes, yeah, thank you, ma'am. Mine is just basically a question of timing. If this gets approved tonight, will the road to the motor coach facility and the motor coach facility be completed with the timing being, what, I think June 2010, that Desert Falls wants to have a major competition? Will this all come together at about the right timing?
Mr. Hacker?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Actually, I believe this road segment would be completed probably in September, October, I think. Mr. Kennedy's here to probably address that, because he will need to have that road access to his completed motor coach properties. which of course would then, Bertha Howe would be extended to Desert Falls and would be available to them, as well as John Deere would be extended over to where Mestec would pick that up and provide connectivity to our station 3.
Do we have any other questions or comments from council? Councilman Ed?
Thank you, Mayor. I think I'll have just to Mr. Hacker. What kind of how does this action, if we approve this, how does it impact or affect our current RDA, funds that we've got?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The intent would be to provide up to $2.5 million to the project. We would treat it as a traditional construction loan, where they would undertake the development activities and provide an invoice, and we would pay or reimburse on that invoice once it was approved by our staff. As far as the wherewithal of the RDA, we're projecting to have a balance at the end of this fiscal year of around $2 million. We of course have tax revenues that are ongoing and incoming, so the $2.5 million could be encompassed with the current RDA. Wouldn't have anything to do with the bond. The bond proceeds, of course, would be in addition to that. Of course, we continue to get very perplexing information from, as I shared last Wednesday during the work sessions, as far as Board of Appeal actions that is lessening our overall valuation with the RDA, but we're still anticipating upwards of a $12 million bond to move forward with the completion of the police station and other projects. So we'd have some additional revenues there as well that could be dedicated if need be.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from council? Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mary. Mr. Hacker, could you continue to talk about, as we talk about these RDA funds, and right now the state is looking at potentially taking some of those funds from us. Does this in any way give us some kind of protection, securing those funds? And the state still come in and take funds, whether it was this loan or whether it was any bond that might come forward in the near future? Does this give us some sort of protection from, because the state's going to want to take, which it can't.
Thank you, Mayor. Council. That's a very good point. We have talked about that, of course. Well, I guess that's January when Assembly was going into session, that there would be, runs on the fund balances of RDA and other types of funds. What we're learning from our lobbyists is that there is a bill moving forward to try to sweep as much as up to 15% of the total RDA uncommitted RDA funds back to the school fund. That would be, at one point in time, we were concerned that it may be post-dated to April 1st, an implementation date. Instead, it's been said that if it's adopted, it'd be set at a July 1 implementation. So our schedule to sell our bonds would conclude in June, and so we would commit the increment necessary to repay that over basically a 15-year time frame, be it a $12 million or whatever we can afford as far as that increment not already dedicated. There's already increment dedicated to two existing bonds, a little over 800,000, I believe, is dedicated to that. So by taking this, I guess even this loan would be considered a commitment. So that's a good point too, Councilman Smith, is that entering into this loan would be a commitment. Our understanding is they cannot come in and derail funds that are legally binding through a bond or a loan or some letter of engagement. So yes, undertaking this activity would be another security of a $2.5 million increment to stay here and work in the state.
Thank you. And one of the favorable things about in regards to the loan versus a bond, the bond we're going to be paying interest in this loan. Actually, the city stands to make it looks like just over $700,000 in interest on that money. So a little bit more of a plus there. I do have a couple of questions for the applicant. I don't know if Mike might come forward and answer some of those. Could you? First of all, it's going to be more like a construction loan basis, where as you submit invoices, we'll make those payments. I guess that's, on track, there's the
Mayor?
form that we're.
I'm not sure if
Everything will be what
you
we'll
want to
put
watch
on,
further.
engineering things,
There's a
things.
couple more discussions, but I don't know how much time council needs to discuss this.
It's up to council. Council, do you want to continue on, or I guess we can stop there.